recently made a video going over my top 5 assets that I use in Unreal Engine on pretty much a daily basis. Easy Fog, Lazy God Ray, Lens and Film Post-Process Imperfector, Camera Master, Metahuman Picker. I gave an overview of those assets in that video, but today we're gonna put it to use. I'll take a shot that's ready to be taken to the next level and show you how I implement everything so you can take your shot from looking like this to this. Let's dive in. So here in Unreal, this was just a small test that I was doing to animate in Unreal, and I'm using the Sci-Fi Jungle Biome asset pack. There's a few things that we could do to really up this. So I'm gonna start with my camera. Let's bring in our camera master. So I just bring in this blueprint and I'm gonna put this to origin. I don't wanna actually have that in my shot. And with the camera master selected, I'm gonna go over to details and there's camera right here. And if I click this drop down, you'll see there's no camera. And that's because this is a spawnable camera. So we can right click, convert selected bindings to possessable. Now, if we go back to that camera master, we can see our cine camera actor. So I'll select that and you see my camera goes crazy. Well, that's because right now the camera master is set to override the lens, override the crop. We don't want that. I already have that set in my camera. If I was doing a camera from scratch, then I would probably do it in here. Let's turn that off. You know what? Let's do the crop then in here. I was on a 239. And we can override the focus. What's cool about this focus is if I do manual, I'm going to show the focus debug. What's kind of nice about this is that the actual debug plane will go further, not shrink. So that's really convenient. So I'm going to line it up here and I'm just going to hit diamond and that will put that into my sequencer. And now I can go and just track. So we're good there. Here, maybe have it travel a little bit faster. And we do this and we'll slowly focus on the background. So now I can turn off the focus debug. And right now it's not going to show too much. I have a pretty wide lens here. I can go here and if I put it to 1, we might get a little bit more. It's very subtle. Let's go to shake. Right now the amount is nothing. So I'm going to do a 0.5. This will be up and down. And then like a 0.2. Now this is pretty subtle. You'll see that it just keeps bouncing right now. One thing that's really awesome is this user defined time. So let's go to our front. I'm gonna check that on. And how this works is it looks at what you enter and key with time. So we're at frame 0, I'm gonna key 0. And you can key it for your whole sequencer from your start and beginning. But if I had to make any changes when it came to length, then I would have to readjust that. But what I found is you can actually just do a second. So I'm 24 frames a second. So I know if I go to 24, I can type in 1, that's gonna be 1 second. And I have auto key on, so that automatically went. But I'm just gonna right click and make this linear. And if I right click here, you'll see curve channels. This is the infinity. This is what's gonna happen before your keys and after keys. And I'm gonna cycle those with offset. And that will basically say 0 to 24, but now 24 to 48. And you'll see the shake is there, but the shake is now essentially baked in. So as I scrub, I will always get that shake. It's a lot easier on the eyes. It won't make you nauseous. What I do want is to get some kind of ambient shake as he goes over. So as we go here, let's key our rotation amount and speed. I don't normally do the location amount. That would be like a translation. I do that very sparingly. I tend to use just rotation shake. So I'm keying here because that's essentially my base shake. And I'll go here about 2 frames as he's going over. And we'll just key this again. And I'm just gonna scrub forward and key again. Now, if we play that, nothing happened because we didn't change any of the amounts. So here I want to beef up the speed a little bit, but I also want to change the amount. So we're at 1, let's do a 1.5 and let's go to a 1. Okay, so the speed might be a little too much. We're at 1, let's do a 1.2. Let's see what that looks like. Try 2. That feels better. We could probably up the amount. I want kind of a visceral kind of feeling to this shake. probably even go crazier. Let's try 6. Let's double what we had. And we could probably let that settle a little bit longer. It's feeling pretty nice. Let's see what 3 looks like. Curious if I try the speed. If I bring the speed. Oh no. That really didn't do much. So, okay. It says you experiment and you see what works, what feels right. I do tend to just key the amount, but the speed change, it feels a little nice. The other thing I might do here is key the intensity. The intensity is a nice little feature that I was playing with before, so let's double that intensity as it goes by. Oh yeah, that's feeling better. That's kind of a combo of the 2, or the 3, that really gives that feel. And what I might do is go to a 1 and a 0.5. Get a little bit more shake in the beginning. Now, one of the things when I'm doing shake, and just to keep in mind, your up and down rotations will always tend to be more than your side to side rotations. So if, for example, at this moment, my up and down is 6, I'll usually go about half, or maybe like 3/4-ish, 2/3, somewhere around there. I just got to play with it and see what feels right. But that's usually the rule of thumb that I start with, is my up and down should always be more. And we can start to move to our next tool, which is Imperfector. So I'm going to go to Window, Imperfector, and that's going to bring up this window. We'll click here because we don't have an Imperfector instance, and that's going to bring it into our outliner. And now we can adjust this. So I'm going to add the effect. The effect that I normally use is the halation effect. It is kind of like a film glow almost, and I really like how it looks and feels and gives. And you can immediately see, just as I put it on, there's just a little bit more life to it, and it's really something so subtle. Now we can mess with the threshold however we want. We can mess with the size of it, or even the intensity. So you can see if we go really crazy with it, it's way too much. But somewhere like a 2 actually feels pretty nice. So if we see our before and after, I mean, that immediately gives you more of a film feel. Let's see our end frame before and after. It gives a little bit more to your bright spots, your highlights. It kind of blows them out a little bit in a good way, not where it looks terrible, but it gives a little bit more depth. So that's what I usually do with the Imperfector. So let's move to the next one. It's Lens and Film Post-Process Blueprint. And I'm just gonna drag and drop that blueprint into my scene. Now, the reason that I'm using Imperfector and Lens and Film Post-Process first is that I want to give that look of my scene and then figure out, okay, now I can layer in Easy Fog and Lazy God Ray and see how it looks in there, instead of placing them and having to readjust back and forth. So Lens and Film Post-Process, we'll look at the details, and there is the blur. And the blur, you can actually just have it on the outside, or if you mess with the exponent, if you bring it down, it starts out at 2. If you bring it down to like a 0.5, you can see it is a little sharper in the front. I do not leave it like this. I bring this down a pretty good amount. But if I toggle that on and off, you can see just how much softer it feels. And sometimes even 2 might be much. You can even go with a 1 and you'll still get just, I mean, look at those background trees. If I'm looking at they're really hard, they're really in focus, but now it just gives a softer feel. I might go on a 1.5 with this one, but this is just something to pull away from those hard edges. Those hard edges, sometimes it just gives you too much of a video game feel. Next, if you want chromatic aberration, you can do chromatic aberration. So this, I usually do just a very small amount. It's nothing crazy. But if you mess with the aberration fade exponent here, you can either have it like on the whole thing, but I usually go pretty much to 10 is the limit, and you just get it on the edges. So you can kind of see it as it goes by. If I toggle that on and off, just get it just on the edges. And this might even be too much, so sometimes I'll do this where I will eye it and then I'll take it back a half, just get something subtle. Then we'll get to film grain. So if I turn on film grain, you'll notice everything kind of gets a little desaturated. That's because there is a shadow desaturation in here. And even if I did one on grain saturation, you get it even more. So you could turn this off. This is just the shadows is gonna desaturate just a little bit. I sometimes do like a 0.2, something really subtle. As far as the grain itself, it might be hard to see in this, but it is a little big. So I usually do a 0.1 on the grain amount, and then the grain scale, I do a 1.5. I like the grain to be something that you feel, not necessarily blatantly see, but I usually keep it like that, and that's good. So next up, I'm actually going to throw a light onto the speeder. I just want to pull it out just a little bit. So let's add a directional. I like to use directionals for a lot of my lighting. So I'm going to just turn off atmosphere sunlight and the effect translucent lighting. I just want this to affect the speeder. So let's go to lighting channel. I'll put this on channel 2 and turn that off. And I'll go to my speeder. This is a blueprint, so I have to go down to here, and we can now turn that on. So if you see here, I'm just gonna really beef this up. I'm gonna turn down the volumetric scattering intensity. I don't want that to affect, because even though it's on the lighting channel, it's still affecting that. And you can see here, it's really bright. This isn't what I'm going to ultimately leave it at, but I like to do this just to see, especially in a busy kind of scene like this. So this is just something just to give it a little bit of highlight as we come around. Ooh, and that's really hot, so. There we go. It just gives it a little bit more to pop out, especially as we come to here. A lot of times when I'm doing lighting, I will use spotlights and point lights, but if I'm just doing a fill on a character that I just need as a blanket fill for the whole thing, I'll throw a directional and I'll just throw it on a lighting channel. I find it easier. You don't have to worry about, say, a character walking in and out of a light. The directional just gives you a blanket one. So let's throw in an easy fog. We're gonna load in this blueprint. Right now, the speeder is kind of getting lost a little bit in this middle. You have the trees, you have the plants. I need something to just pull it out a little bit. So I'm gonna bring in this easy fog. This is very extreme. I'm just gonna scale it up a little bit. And I'm just going to position it so it can help pull that speeder back a little bit. Now this flow map on the easy fog is a little intense, so we're going to just bring it down to like a 0.2 or 0.3. We're going to get a little bit of movement, nothing too crazy or too fast. And now we could dial in the fog. Fog density. So I don't want to go too heavy with it, because we're gonna now duplicate this and place it around. So I can go and I can do 2. So this will give me a different shape. But we could just start to now play with this. I'm just placing these in small little areas. Again, just to give that little bit of haze. Now I'm gonna duplicate it one more time. I'm gonna boost this up pretty dense just so I can see it as I push it a lot further back. Maybe a little behind those trees, that's nice. I'm gonna really scale this up and do that. Now I can start to bring a couple more layers into that. So you can see if I turn those off, everything is the same. But now if I bring this, it really makes the speeder pop. It separates the background a little bit more from that foreground and really gives a nice feel. Now one thing we can also do is to get a little bit of movement. We have a lot in the foreground, but I'm gonna pull one of these easy fogs. I duplicated it and I'm gonna bring it closer. So this easy fog, I'm gonna scale down. Again, let's bring it pretty dense. And let's change our shape. That was 4. This will be a little lower fog. Just something to give a little dimension. That's feeling pretty nice. I think that's good for easy fog right now. It's feeling like we have a lot and it's doing its job. We might want to throw some easy fog up in the top here, but let's do some lazy god right, and then we can maybe throw some more easy fog in there. So let's navigate to lazy god right, blueprints. I'm gonna bring in the V2. That is the one that you can actually converge. And lazy god ray, I want some rays coming down and shining like here. So let's change that length. I'm gonna kind of tilt up. This is a slightly tricky one because we are tilting up at the end. So we do need to make this kind of coming from off screen, but still doing what we want it to. So that length can come down. And we're gonna bring that convergence all the way up. So this is feeling pretty cool. Pretty cool already, but I wanna rotate it in and probably back a little bit more. But you can see we're just still getting a lot. And we're probably cutting out by now, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But something we want to try to get. So that's feeling pretty cool. This tint, I don't want it to be white. I want to get that nice yellow glow. And everything else is kind of giving. The intensity, maybe we're not as saturated. The intensity, that feels kind of nice. I think we can rotate it just a little bit more towards, yeah, a little bit more in our way. That feels pretty cool. And let's duplicate I'm gonna pull that one a little closer. Change the angle just a little bit. And now we have something more in the foreground, so you can see just right there. Just getting a little bit more. That feels nice. That feels really nice in the middle. So if we take that off and even our easy fog, see how even we are. And now we just have so much more atmosphere. So quick. These are genuinely, easy fog and lazy god ray are the two assets that I use a ton. Now the second god ray, let's scale up the smoke so we see just a little bit more of it. Pull it from that end. 0.1 and 0.1. Maybe a 0.2. And we can actually go to a 0.2 on there. And even this intensity might be a little too much, so 0.25 feels a little better. That feels pretty cool. And as I was saying before, I wanted to get that lazy god ray in because now we can add a little bit more easy fog here, and we can try and mask where the lazy god ray is coming from. So let's take this. We're just gonna bring that to 1, so it's pretty solidified. And now we can just pull it towards us. I want to go in front of this tree with it because that will help tie everything in and mask it just a little bit more. Now this is really big, so we can bring it over. There we go. It's a little close. That's feeling pretty good because we'd probably cut out like there. And that's how easy it is to elevate your shot with these amazing effects. I hope you'll implement some of these effects if you like them. And please let me know in the comments what you think and if there are any assets that you like to use to pull your shot to the next level. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one.